Terrain in video games is one of the most important things when designing a game, whether it may be multiplayer or single player. It is without a doubt that terrain is one of the main features that attracts players to games. Now, some might think that terrain is really hard to make in Unity. However, it is very simple. And today I'll be teaching you how to make terrain and to implement gravity settings in your game with character movement. So let's get started.
The first thing you want to do is to install the Terrain Tools pack on Unity, which is on, and this can be found on Unity's main asset store. So I'm going to look it up right now. So Terrain Tools pack. This pack contains grass, trees, and tiles that we will need to add texture and color to the ground and making our terrain look really amazing. So typically for this package, it takes a while to install. So it takes a while to install. So you can do planning while it is being downloaded, which is right now. As Terrain Tools is currently importing right now, we need to do a thing called planning. And for this, you'll need a few things. You need a notepad, a pen, and most certainly a ruler, if you have one. So now that you've got your piece of paper, you can start by planning. So you draw a massive, first thing you do is draw a massive square. Like now, it doesn't have to be perfect, but whatever. This is a rectangle, but it'll do the job. So now that you've got your rectangle, sketch out certain things that you want in the terrain. Please note that the starting terrain square in Unity is quite large, 1,000 by 1,000. So you might want to make the drawing and detail to a much smaller scale, such as like a quarter. So I'm just going to start doing a practice thing right now. For example, I want to have a path here. It's just quick bird's eye view. So I know that I want a path here. Then say I might have some trees around this path. These are really bad trees, but please bear with me. And this may be like grass. You get the point. So let's just make this grass instead. And so you see how now I have like a base idea of what I want to create. So this is extremely important, and please take your time with this. Don't be like me and just rush this, because it will be a guide for you later, because it shows you what you really want to make in Unity and where to put certain things in your terrain. And I'm just gonna quickly do this and we'll be back. So I just quickly finished doing this really bad demonstration of, say, a guide. It doesn't have to be perfect at all. It can just be, it needs to be really basic, something that you can follow, right? So you'd have like trees, grass, mountains, that kind of thing. And I'll be teaching you how to do all of that later in the video, so stay tuned. And now it's time to go into Unity and build your terrain. So yeah, I'll see you there. After you've done your drawing, I bet you're really excited to tear into Unity and make your dream map. But wait, where is your coffee? Hey, stop. Hey, you can't just start coding without your coffee. Start over. So, after you finish drawing out your terrain, you can go ahead in the hierarchy and add a 3D object called terrain, and you should see a little plane in your 3D Unity project, right? Just like a little square. And as you can see, this is the same square that we drew in our little notepad. So, if you click on the terrain, you should see terrain, the terrain component. And if you click on the second button, you should see a little brush. And this is called raise and lower terrain. Then again, I'll go through all these buttons. And like I said at the beginning of the video, this is going to be heavily categorized. So I'm going to go through each of the different types of brushes in different segments of the video, which is going to be right now. So as I was saying before, I'm going to be doing all of the brushes in little segments. But if you see here, you have a small little brush here, and if you picture here, you can paint holes, paint texture, set height, smooth height, stamp terrain. But for this tutorial, we're just going to be doing raise and lower terrain. So if we zoom in, just say on this little corner, you'll see that you have a little circle and you have a little bit of a increase in height, which gives like a rocky texture, like so. So what you do is if you click and you hold, if you click you can hold, it will make these little lumps or little hills if you want that hilly effect. And if you do Control Z, you can get rid of them obviously. So, but if you find one that is like really high, you can press Shift and you can lower it down to whatever height you need. Like so. So right now I'm going to just make the little path that I made before. And this is where it becomes incredibly handy with making the kind of terrain you want. So if you go 2D mode, go up a little bit. Yeah. Or wait, hang on, sorry, I lost that. So you can use the drag tool, drag into the center. There, you've got a clear view. And now if I paint, let's just quickly make a little rocky side mountain, or rock mountain or something. This isn't exactly what I draw, this is just for tutorial purpose only. So what you do is you'd use your drawing as a guide. So let's just do this. So I wanted to make a little path. So this middle bit's going to be a bit of a path. But then if we zoom in, or we change directions, you'll see that you can do bird's eye view, and you can make whatever path you want, or whatever path you choose. It's like what I'm doing here. Except that yours will probably, and take precision with it, don't be like me and rush it. This is just for a tutorial base. So this is the first brush. You can also select multiple different brushes to give a different sort of texture. So if I zoom in, or I change this, yeah, you see that gives a more spiky effect to it. But then you'd also have all the different brushes that have different textures. For example, some would do like a star, like that one, see? And yeah, so they all do different things. Like I said, you just need to experiment with it and figure out what you want. It doesn't matter if it takes a bit more time, but you'll be able to make whatever terrain you want with whatever kind of brush you want. Now, I'm going to start doing the next brush, which is right now. So here we are in the next segment of the terrain tutorial, and you may notice that our terrain is looking a bit dull at the moment because it has no color, and that's very, very bad. So what we will want to do is we want to go into the inspector, and what you're going to want to do is you would want to paint texture. So here, where you selected to rise or lower terrain, you go down a little bit, go down to, and you should see paint texture, and you click that. Now what you do is then you do edit terrain layers and say press create layer. And now you drag and you go down and you drag and you pick anything you want. For example, if I could find something useful, let's go grass meadows. See how it's painted the whole thing green. Now it may look like that it isn't in great detail, but if we zoom in, you can see that you now have a solid ground, and that is very nice. However, what some people like to do is they like to have different pieces for the layers. So if we do create layer and say I want to have a stone one, if I could find it, or just another bush, if it's just something muddy or rocky. See, now what you can do here is you can select your brush type and you can start painting your terrain to be a different color. So if I wanted to, so just to show this in a example, say I wanted to make this path, say the path here, to be like, so I would change, my brush size, probably not that big, but big enough so that it looks like this. And now we have a nice smooth pattern for our terrain. And you can keep doing this until you can get whatever kind of effect you want. This is an incredibly basic effect, but it also can add a really good amount of detail if used correctly. And this can be seen in multiple different video games. In fact, if you look at the bottom, if you are in a RPG or something like Skyrim, but an open world game, and you actually look down, your eyes fool you a little bit, because if you look down, it's just a flat tile, even though you think there's actually grass there. And yeah, it's really interesting. So you can use as many different layers as you want, and yeah, that's it for the terrain layers and the textures for the ground. Okay, so now it's time for you guys to help out Team Trees, and it's time to paint trees. Now you may think that you have to go into the environment, the standard assets, and drag in the trees one by one, like this. But no, there's a much more simple process to do that. So what you do is you can go to terrain and you go to this middle part here, the middle button, and you press edit trees, and you can add trees. And here it will get you to drag in a tree object. For example, if I want to get this broadleaf mobile, I can drag this in and I can add it. Now if I go back into my terrain, you can see that I can now paint little bunches of these. And yeah, you can do this you can add more trees, different kinds of trees. For example, I'll add this wider variant. And now I can paint that. Boom, and it looks beautiful. Yeah. Now, depending on the amount, how big your brush is, can depend on how big how many trees it spawns, because it doesn't spawn the trees in size, it spawns them in bunches. So for example, a brush size of 8 would only spawn, say, 1 tree rather than a size of 40 spawning 5 in the same exact position. So you got to be wary, because when I first started doing it, I made it really massive, and I just did that, not knowing that all the trees would be smushed together, and that can really bug up your game a little bit. It can make it all laggy because of the amount of sprites that it has to continuously do. So you can add whatever trees you want. So what I recommend, if you're starting out, maybe just go with a brush size of 5 and just add whatever trees you want. Now I'm going to add a couple more trees and I'm going to come back. So now after you've done all your trees, and you've helped Team Trees, that's an old meme from a while ago, but I don't really care at this point. It's time for you to add grass to your terrain. So what you go here is, I've already added a couple, but you go edit details, I'll add a duplicate, and press add grass texture. Now if you see here, you have this little palette or little menu where you can then drag your grass texture. So I just grass font to alpha. And from here you can edit the minimum width, max height, max height, pretty self-explanatory, right? But then you've also got these healthy colors and dry colors. Now if we keep these the regular color, which say we do, so let's add this. And make sure your occupancy level for your brushes are up, because if you go to level 0, you'll see that you don't paint any grass, because it won't allow for any grass height. Now say you add it to, say, 219, you see that we immediately spawn with grass. Now you may notice here is that the grass color is a bit different than what we normally would need for a terrain of this color, right? And if you zoom out enough, you may not see it, but if you zoom in, you will definitely see it. Now you got to be careful, because this can seriously bug your game. So there's more just little patches of grass here and there, whilst adding hills. So we want to change. We don't like this color of grass because it's bad. It just does not fit with our environment. So if I want to change it to a swampy environment, I go edit details. I make sure the one I want to change is selected. I press the edit button, and then you see here we got a healthy color and a dry color, right? So what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to change this color to whatever color that you really want. So for example, I'd say I'd want a darker green. So yeah, that looks better. And then what I want to do is I want to add a darker dry color. Like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Well, if you're making a game and you're releasing it, see now it's much darker. That's probably a bit too dark, to be quite frank. So maybe a bit lighter. It's just it doesn't matter if it takes you a bit of more extra time, just as long as you get the right effect you're looking for. There we go. There you go. See, it's a bit brighter, but it's still a bit dark. So it's all to do with trial and error. I'm gonna come back to you and I'm gonna do more finishing touches and give you some final tips before I end this video. So off camera, I did a bit of extra work with adding a bit more height and raising the terrain and lowering certain areas. So now that I've got this really nice, very basic terrain, I'm going to give you guys some pointers of how to get your terrain to look a bit more realistic. Now, this isn't obviously going to be the most realistic thing, but it's just going to be nice for your player to wander around through a little bit. So if you have a look here, I have used different textures for the rocks, that kind of thing. Really self-explanatory, right? Then you've also got, here's a really big one. You see how sometimes if I change, say, go into terrain and I want to paint the texture, now automatically your texture is going to be scale 1 to 1, and it's going to give you this really awful effect of like little squares on the ground if I'm able to zoom in enough. Yeah, so you see how it's like the same repeating pattern? What we do to avoid this is you go to tiling things in size, so you do 20 by 20. Now what this will do is this will enlarge the tile base. And you can see it gives a lot more, a much better effect, right? You can also change the color of the grass, which I said earlier. Now, here's another thing with the trees. The trees themselves, from self-experience, they are a bit buggy if you add too many of them. And so, like I said before, just with your brush size, don't increase it to 800, don't go max. Go, say, maybe 1. And so you spawn 1 tree at a time. Because I remember when I was working on a Stephen He game, which I am currently now, that will be releasing very soon, so stay tuned. I spawned in a bunch of trees, and that really bugs my thing up. And so, yeah, once you do that, you should look really good. Also with the rock, do the same with the rock textures as well. And that's going to be the end of this video. So go in the comments below, tell me how crappy this video was. I don't really care. And yeah, that's it for our Unity terrain. Now stay tuned for the next video, or the next couple videos, because they'll be about 3D movement, so your character can explore your terrain. Now I need to stress this as well. The more time you spend on your terrain, the better it will look. See, you can tell like, oh crap, oops, my mistake. You can tell obviously that I put little effort in. Usually when I'm doing terrain, I put in a lot of effort in. Yeah, that's it really. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please be sure to like, share and subscribe. You can roast me in the comments about how dodgy this video is. I actually want to hear some of your feedback. Even if you say my video sucks, I'll still look at it as a form of compliment, because you guys are still giving me this out. I'm joking. But if you guys enjoyed it, please share, subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.
When you looking up and I'm like, what's up? They leave me out for the dead and now they know they're fucked. All my texts are unread, that's how I know she's done. My life changed in a flash, all my friends gone, my friends gone. What can I say, all this lavish shit comes with downfall. Every day, leave my phone at home, not taking no call. I'm away if you're tryna fuck up.